The story begins at a moment when the world's future is hanging by a thread. Picture the year 1908. Europe is tense, armies are growing, and leaders are moving pieces on a board that looks more like a trap than a map. But in this alternate timeline, something major happens long before the first shots of World War I. The Ottoman Empire, once a giant now struggling to stay alive, chooses to act early. Instead of waiting until 1914 to join the Central Powers, the Ottomans reach out to Germany years earlier, quietly, carefully, and with a sense that time is running out. And this one choice, this early alliance, sets off a chain reaction that changes everything. At this time, the Ottoman Empire is under heavy pressure. It has lost territory, lost money, and lost influence. Every move feels like a step on thin ice. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more content. Meanwhile, Germany is rising fast. Strong industry, strong military, and strong confidence. Many Ottoman leaders believe Germany is the right partner. But in real history, political delays, internal confusion, and fear of angering other powers slowed the process. In our alternate timeline, these delays never happen. Instead, a bold group of Ottoman officials sees the danger ahead and decides they must pick a side early before they are forced into a corner. And so, around 1909, secret meetings begin. In dark rooms, away from spies and suspect ears, Ottoman and German diplomats speak frankly. The Ottomans want protection, modern weapons, and help fixing their army. Germany wants a strategic partner whose land connects Europe, Asia, and the Middle East. Germany also wants access to warm water ports and the chance to threaten British trade lines. Both sides see opportunity. Both sides feel urgency. Slowly, a plan begins to form, one that will tie their futures together long before the world expects it. By 1910, the alliance becomes official, though still hidden from the public. Germany starts sending military advisors, artillery, and money. Ottoman officers train with German officers, learning new tactics and new discipline. Railroads expand faster, most importantly, the Berlin to Baghdad Railway, which becomes the backbone of this new friendship. In real history, this project suffered long delays. In our timeline, it moves quickly because both sides know war might come at any moment and they want to be ready. This early partnership has surprising effects. For the first time in years, the Ottoman military begins to stabilize. Corruption doesn't disappear, but the pressure to modernize becomes stronger. Young officers feel hopeful, believing they finally have the tools to protect their land. Germany sees the Ottomans as a valuable asset and invests heavily. Other European powers start to notice, and suspicion rises. Britain, France, and Russia begin to worry that the balance of power is shifting. They quietly start adjusting their own plans, each wondering how far Germany's shadow will reach. The most important change happens slowly but deeply: confidence. When nations feel weak, they fall apart faster. But when they feel supported, they fight harder. By 1912, when the Balkan Wars break out, the Ottomans in this timeline are not as unprepared as in real history. They still face strong enemies and still lose territory, but they fight with better weapons and better organization. The losses hurt them, but they do not break them. Instead, the defeats make the German alliance even more important. Ottoman leaders now believe their survival depends on staying close to Berlin. And Germany, seeing how determined the Ottomans are, decides to push even harder to strengthen the partnership. The world continues toward disaster. Tensions grow. Countries stack alliances like towers made of thin wood. One strong push, and the entire structure will collapse. And then, in the summer of 1914, the spark finally hits: the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand. Europe moves toward war at frightening speed. But here is where the alternate timeline becomes truly powerful. Unlike real history, where the Ottomans waited months to pick a side, in this timeline, they are already committed. Their alliance with Germany is not a sudden decision, it is a long-prepared move. So when Germany asks for help, the Ottoman Empire responds quickly. This changes the first months of World War I in dramatic ways. The Ottomans close the Dardanelles early, blocking Allied ships and cutting off Russian trade routes. This puts enormous pressure on Russia, which depends on warm water access to keep its economy moving. France and Britain now have to find new plans for supply routes, and this slows their early military operations. German advisors help coordinate Ottoman defences in the Caucasus, making Russia's job even harder when the front erupts. The war becomes more complex and more dangerous much earlier than in real history. Meanwhile, Britain senses the threat to its trade lines and its position in the Middle East. The British Empire had long worried about Germany gaining influence in this region. Now their fears become real. They realise that an Ottoman-German military network stretching from Europe to Iraq could challenge their control over vital routes like the Suez Canal. So Britain starts building alliances with local Arab leaders even earlier than in real history, hoping to weaken Ottoman control from inside. Small promises are made, small agreements are shaped. A darker, quieter conflict begins under the surface of the main war. The early alliance also affects the Eastern Mediterranean. With German naval support, the Ottoman navy becomes more active. Mines are placed, patrol routes tighten, and the sea becomes a dangerous place for Allied ships. The famous Gallipoli campaign might still happen, but this time the Ottomans are even more prepared, having trained for years under German guidance. The landings become costlier for the Allies, and the failure arrives faster. This has powerful effects on political morale in Britain and Australia, where Gallipoli was already a painful memory. Another massive change appears in the Middle East. In real history, the Ottoman army struggled with outdated equipment and supply shortages. In this alternate world, German railways, weapons, and logistics support helped the Ottomans hold territory more effectively. The British advance from Egypt is slower. The push into Mesopotamia becomes riskier. German officers assist in planning defences along the desert routes. Battles that were easy for the Allies become long and exhausting. The Middle Eastern front turns into a real challenge instead of a slow collapse. But there is a deeper, more surprising twist. This early alliance means the Ottoman Empire does not enter the war out of desperation. They enter with preparation and with a sense of partnership. Morale stays higher. Internal political conflicts grow slower. A more united Ottoman state fights longer and harder. As the war drags on, Germany sees the Ottomans as reliable allies rather than a burden. They share technology, intelligence, and strategic planning at a level far beyond real history. The two nations develop a deeper military bond, which shapes how the war unfolds in Eastern Europe, the Caucasus, and the Mediterranean. Now imagine the winter of 1916. In real history, both the Central Powers and the Ottomans were exhausted. But in this alternate scenario, even though they still face pressure, they are not collapsing. The Berlin to Baghdad railway keeps supplies moving. German artillery helps defend key fortresses. Russian advances face stronger resistance. Britain struggles to secure control of oil-rich areas. The war becomes a slower, grittier struggle, where neither side gains fast victories. By 1917, the world watches in confusion. The war has not followed the expected pattern. The Ottomans have not crumbled. Germany's position remains strong. France and Britain are fighting hard, but carrying heavier costs. Russia faces internal unrest, even earlier due to supply shortages caused by the closed Dardanelles. The map of power begins to tilt. The longer the Ottomans hold, the more the Allies have to spend resources on secondary fronts, reducing pressure on Germany in the West. At this point, some leaders in Europe start whispering about negotiation. They fear the war could last many more years. but no one wants to be the first to step back. Each side waits for a sign, a shift, a collapse, anything. And then something unexpected happens. The United States still joins the war, but the impact is slower. The US must now support more fronts, not just Europe, because the Middle East remains unstable. This divides resources and slows the push toward victory. By 1918, the Central Powers still face enormous pressure. Germany struggles on the Western Front, but the Ottomans, though tired, are still standing. Their early alliance, years of preparation, and stronger unity keep them functioning. In this alternate world, the war does not end in 1918. The fronts freeze, leaders negotiate, and instead of a complete collapse of the Ottoman Empire, the peace terms allow them to survive, though weakened, as a smaller but stable state. The map of the Middle East looks different. Oil control is split differently. Borders shift in new ways. And Germany, though also exhausted, ends the war without total defeat, which means the conditions that led to the next global conflict unfold in an entirely different direction. The story ends with a simple lesson. One early decision, one alliance made years before the storm, can change the entire shape of history. If the Ottomans had joined Germany earlier, the struggle of World War I could have taken a very different path, perhaps longer, perhaps more balanced, and certainly more unpredictable. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more content.